your goal is not enough.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Geek-A-Tech. Today we are going to talk about a very different topic, which is not that different uh, when we create an application or we test the application. So we many times we saw sorry that in team where developers and testers have different of opinions related to defects which raised by testers. Sometimes they had chaos also in between them, that no, this is a defect, and developers said no, this is not a defect, you didn't mention this thing, you didn't mention that thing. How can I understand the steps, and how I can understand that what you are trying to prove in your defect. So the thing is that it will be very easy for developer to understand the defect, that if a tester mention as much as information he can provide in the defect, along with very precise language which should not mislead the developers. And I think if they are which the points which we are going to talk about today, those points will be very very helpful for testers to understand that this the way they can raise defect quite effectively, and it will be helpful for developers also to understand that okay, what the testers wants to say about the defect. So there are things that before going through the points, these points are applicable for any kind of methodology. These are very common. It's not like that it's applicable only in agile, or it's only applicable for waterfall model or v model. No, it's pretty much applicable for each and every kind of model. It's very basics, it's very generous, it's very generic thing. It's very This topic is very important for, especially for the freshers who just started their career in testing. So let's go through the points step by step, that how effectively you can raise the defect and how it can be very helpful for developer also to understand. Okay, so let's start with the point number one, is summary. So it's a very important to mention summary in defect, because by looking at the summary, the developer can easily identify that okay, on what component or on what module this defect is coming, or is it related to regression, or it's for functional. Okay, so they can by looking at the summary, they can understand, at least they have an idea that okay, at which point or on which module the defect is you know appearing, and it's failing the product or the application. So it's very important to write a very precise summary. It should not be quite lengthy, it should be very effective, very precise, and should have enough information for developer to go through the module, okay, to understand okay on at which part of the module it's coming. Like if you are getting a defect on UI level, then you should mention in your summary something like that, summary. And you can mention if it's coming in regression or in functional. If it's coming in regression, then you can mention reg or regression. Okay, then you can make it hyphen, something like that. Then you can mention UI. Okay, you can mention, if it's coming on API, then you can mention API. Okay, so it will give an idea to developer that okay, it's coming on API level, it's coming on UI level. Okay, so suppose if you have a problem with login, then you can mention that like on UI it's coming. So you can mention here it's coming because of a part of regression, it's coming on functional basis. It was working fine in the last build, but when I get the current build or the new build, then my login functionality is failing. So you need to mention that it's a regression issue. Okay, so you need to mention like reg-ui. It's not a thumb rule which I am mentioning here, but you can put it in some other way also, but you should take care of this approach. You can mention this, you can use this approach in your own way also to mention the summary of the defect. Here you can mention that reg ui, then login, then you can mention that okay, user is not able to log in with valid credentials. Okay, so now you can see that by looking at the summary, the developer or a business person also can understand that okay, when running the regression, user is not able to log in with valid credentials. Okay, so this is the pretty much giving a very, in brief words, it give a developer or a business person a very good precise knowledge that okay, login functionality is not working, it's an integration issue and it's coming on UI. Okay, so that's the first thing. So it's a very important point to take care while raising the defect in summary. The second point is steps. Steps, it's very important. It's, you can say that it's a backbone of your defect which you are raising right now, because what happens if you are giving a vague steps, okay, that okay, login, launch the browser, login, and then it's failed. No, you should mention that by step that okay, you launch the browser, you mention the URL, you enter the correct username, then you enter the password, then you try to click on submit button or login button, then it failed and it give you an error message which is coming on UI. So you need to also mention that what kind of error message you are receiving. Okay, so it should be precise in steps. There might be you can facing some issues like when you enter first password and then you enter the username and you try to submit, then it's failing. But when you entered username first and you are entering the password second and then you try to submit, okay, then it's working fine. So steps should be very precise. You should give steps properly. Okay, in case if you tried once and your login failed or your functionality failed, then you should try it one more time before raising the defect, so you will be so sure that okay, yes, it's coming again and again. Don't try to raise a defect which is a random issue which is coming around out of 10 times. If it's coming only twice, then just make a point of that, raise it in your meetings that I faced the random issue, it's not coming every time, it's coming only twice out of 10. Okay, you should mention these steps also in your meeting that okay, I will keep an eye on the defect, I will try to look keep an eye, I will monitoring the issue. If it comes again, then I will raise it. Okay, so your step should be very similar to what step you did while testing your application. Okay, it should not be vague, it should be precise, and it should be same as you followed on your application. Okay, again, also there is one more important point which I missed in the first point is summary, that you should mention that in which environment you got the issue. Okay, there might be a dev environment, might be a mu8 or you can say UAT environment, you can say QA environment. So it should be mentioned in the defect summary also. Okay, otherwise it will be very difficult for developer to understand that okay, if issue is coming, then in which environment is coming, because when you raise the defect, he will ask you the very first question, in which environment you tested. If you raise the if you raise the defect with proper summary which mention the environment also, then he will know that okay, where he has to look. Okay, so when you mention all the steps one by one, then you need to mention your actual in steps. After mentioning all the steps, then you need to mention actual and expected result, that what is happening right now and what is your expected result. So it will be very clear for him that okay, what is you are expecting and what is happening, so he can distinguish between the results or the responses of your application. So he will understand that okay, if I follow these steps, these are these steps and this is what they are actually facing right now and what is their expectation. Okay, so it is very very much important to mention actual and expected result for your defect. Okay, third and very important point, mention requirement references also. It's very very important because what happens sometimes, the point is, developer says no, it should work like that. The tester said no, it should work like this. So he said, why you are saying this? Because sometimes it happens that they have misinterpretations of the things. So you can mention your requirement references like okay, in this ticket, this is the acceptance criteria has been mentioned. So according to this acceptance criteria or point number 2 or point number 3 of a particular requirement, the business or your business analyst or your PO has mentioned this behavior and it's not working. So it is very very important to mention the requirement references also. So it will make very very clear to developer that okay, you are not saying by your own, you are referring to something which is already discussed, which is already mentioned in the requirements. Okay, so it will helpful for you also as a tester that you understand the requirement properly and you are referring that requirement. Okay, so developer can also refer the same requirement and he can fix the issue. So this is the third point. Fourth and very much important point is artifacts. Artifacts you should mention, otherwise what happens sometimes when developer try to recreate issue on his machine, it he is not able to generate the same issue. Okay, so you should mention a screenshot, or you can also record these your steps and you can mention in defect also. So it will very very helpful for him also to understand that okay, this is how the steps were followed, or this is how the results is actually generated on application. Okay, because he cannot visualize without seeing the actual errors. So when you mention the defect, you should mention the artifacts also. Okay, you should if it's a direct issue which is suppose some error message, very technical error message like 500 internal server error, when you click on submit button it gives you that error, then you can directly uh, take a screenshot of that error and you can paste it in your defect and you can mention that okay, this is how application works. Okay, right now it's working in this way. When I click on submit button, then it give me an error page. So it will be helpful for developer also to understand that okay, when they click on this button, and this is actually this is what how defect, or I can say how the actually error message generating. Because what happens sometimes, error messages are quite long. So you say it's saying something like user is not there, or no, you should mention the precise error messages also, because it will be helpful for developer also to debug the issue. Okay, so your artifacts should be there. You should take a screenshot, or if it is possible for you to take the record your screen or your steps, then it will be very very helpful for them also, or and for you also, that okay, when I follow this step, then it's happening. So what will happen if you record this session, then your steps will also be matching with your recording steps. So it will make your defect very effective. Okay, the fifth and important point is review. Always review your defects before raising. Okay, try to review it with your colleague, try to review it with your seniors, with your TL, or your senior colleague. Okay, You can, if you are, if it's a direct defect, then no problem. But sometimes what happen, they are defects are quite tricky. We might understand the requirement differently where it should be. Sometimes we thought that okay, it should work like this, but it is not working like that. So you should have a proper review with your colleague or with your seniors who have more experience in the application. Okay, I'm not saying that they have more experience in industry, I'm saying who is having more experience in the application. So you can get a review from them also, and you can mention that okay, this defect is reviewed by them. If, because many of the companies, they have a process where in the defect they mention the by whom you reviewed it. Okay, you which person reviewed your defect. So it's always good to have a second opinion. Okay, so reviewed it with your colleague testers or with your senior tester. Okay, or with the TL, so they can guide you that okay, now yes, this is the requirement and it's not working fine, it's a issue. Okay, you can go with that. So if you follow this all those stuff while raising the defect, then it makes your life easy as well as the developer's life also, because he will also understand that okay, what actually you is happening with the application, what is the expectation from the application, in which environment it is happening, how the error looks like, or how application behaves when you attach the artifacts. Okay, and he will also know when you reviewed it that okay, yes, uh, you reviewed your defect also. So he also know that okay, there's one more person also reviewed it, and yes, he can also discuss with that person, with that senior person, and can understand it more you know effectively, that yes, this is the issue and it should work like this. So this is how you can make your defect more effective when you raise it. So, and you can uh, get rid of unnecessary chaos, and you can make your life easy with following these simple 5 points when you raise your defect. Okay, so this is all about today's video. If you like my video, please subscribe it, like it, share it, and I will come with more new videos soon. Thank you.